Oh dear, that camera's at a very, very high angle. Hello. So, we haven't officially started yet. We've just gone live. So if you're here right at the beginning, the word on the fridge isn't actually anything to do with the NIHL this week. But the word is 8. Can't really. You can just about see it backwards in the screen. Yes, the word this week on the fridge is 8. Because we are privy to watch the greatest goal scorer in the history of the sport at the moment. It is crazy, and he's about to become. He's going to overtake Gordie Howe in the next couple of weeks. He might even do it before Christmas, which would be pretty crazy. But we will enjoy watching him go. But kind of had to do it for him. So as we just hit live on everything, we'll just give everybody a chance just to kind of get in, make sure everything's there, and make sure people have seen the tweets, seen the messages, and are joining in. That's what we'll do. Just make sure everything's all right in one piece. We'll also very, very quickly just make sure that we just very quickly check the Elite League scores as well whilst we're just waiting for people to come in. So if you're coming in, keep joining. Remember to tweet everything out in bits and pieces like that. It'd be appreciated as always. Share the stream, get people in. Like I said, we'll just give it a couple of moments just for folks to come in, and then we will get rocking and rolling. Obviously going tremendously well for the Cardiff Devils at the moment. That is not a good start at all. Hey ho. Like I said, we'll just give it another moment or two for folks to come in, and then we will get rocking and rolling. As you can imagine, it's nothing else. Being where I am in the house, as you can guess, given what is sat behind me, it's not the warmest rooms in here right now. We'll just give everyone another moment or two. Just very, very quickly gonna go to there. Oh, dearie me. What a week, eh? What a week. Well. On with the show. Guys, girls, and the gender fluid and all beyond the binary. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. Welcome back once again to the BOTW What's Current stream. My name is Anthony Russell, and we're here once again to talk you through absolutely every game you can possibly imagine that took place within the National Ice Hockey League here in Great Britain across the last week. We focus on the National Division. That is our bread and butter. That is our home port. But we, of course, will have a look across every game from the National Division as well as Division 1 and Division 2 in the north. And in the south, hope you're doing well. Before we go too much further and too deep into the news and bits and pieces, of course, a little bit of housekeeping before we kick off. If you're watching live, please do take a moment to tweet out, share the stream, whether it's Twitter, Mastodon, Facebook, however you want to kind of share it out. Please do share it around because this isn't a monologue. This is a conversation. And the more people who come in and party with us, the better. Algorithms are a thing in social media and things like YouTube too. So the more people who watch, the better. And of course, we have the chat function over there. So if you want to join in, questions, comments, anything that you do want to chuck into the chat, please do. It would be greatly appreciated because it helps with the whole conversational element of this nonsense. But of course, if you are using the chat function, please do remember the golden rule. DBAD, don't be a dick, be respectful of other people's thoughts, feelings, and opinions as we wind our merry way through the machinations of British hockey for this week. And boy, there's a few things that we need to talk about this week, isn't there? Anyway, the other bit of housekeeping before we much further is bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, which is my website, which is what gave birth to this nonsense. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for everything related to the Basingstoke Bison, player comings, player goings, match write-ups. As you will notice, there has been no write-up so far this week from the game against Romford. It's two reasons for that. One, I haven't had time. And two, I'm struggling to get the words out of my head because I'm sort of teetering a little bit on a bit of a rant for some Bison stuff at the moment. And I kind of want to make sure I can do a piece about the game and then do a piece about some of the issues the Bison are having as an organisation right now, roster-wise. Sort of on the ice, as it were, before I don't want those two. I don't want to kind of cross the streams to borrow a thing from Ghostbusters because these are kind of different things. People want the analysis of the game and then they want some other bits too. But there's a bunch of stuff over there on the website. A new hockey stories piece that came out last Friday. A nice long sit-down interview with Tommy Ralph, former Hull Stingrays, former Hull Pirates, who then of course left the Pirates with some acrimony. bounced around the country for a little while and is now back home with the Hull Seahawks. A really, really great interview. A massive thanks to Tommy for taking the time to do that with me. If nothing else, his routine is insane. If you've never tried to work in the hospitality industry and be a semi-professional hockey player, you will be utterly bemused by how Tom Ralph stands up on a daily basis without falling over due to lack of energy. That's there, as well as the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast. Dice Hockey, our tabletop simulation ice hockey game, is there to download for free. That and a bunch of other great things over at bannersonthewall.wordpress.com. Right. Well, where do we start then? And I think probably, given the fact it was in the title tweet, let's start with the disciplinary update that came out of our friends at the EIHA the other day. Now, Hull preempted this one and tweeted about the fact that James Archer, who came back into hockey this year, having had a bit of a break from it, had been given a 13-game ban by the EIHA. And of course, everybody sort of leapt to the conclusions as to what actually that kind of constituted. Had he been given 13 games for one incident, for 2 incidents. This takes us back to the game recently between the Hull Seahawks and the Bristol Pitbulls that the Pitbulls won. It was 0-0 through 40 minutes, and the third period went completely barking mad. And Archer resulted in himself getting 2 misconduct penalties and 2 match penalties into the bargain for fighting. You've got 2 match penalties for fighting, and then 2 game misconducts. One for resisting an official. 2 game misconduct penalties for resisting an official, and a game misconduct penalty for leaving the bench. He's actually got 3 game misconducts and 2 matches in one. So just having a look at the EIHA press release that came out about this. In the game against the Bristol Pitbulls on December the 4th, James Archer of the Hull Seahawks received 2 match penalties for fighting. Both were assessed at Tier 1 in the tariff, and each received a 2-game suspension, 4 games total. As a result of penalty points also gained through 2 game misconduct penalties for resisting an official and a game misconduct for leaving the bench, Archer meets the following points penalty thresholds. 10 penalty points receiving a 2-game suspension, 15 penalty points receiving a 3-game suspension, and 20 penalty points receiving a 4-game suspension. So he broke 3 barriers, 3 tiers of the penalty point suspension in one shot. So that's 4 games he got for his match penalties for fighting, and then an additional 9 games for breaking all the penalty points thresholds to take him to 13 games from one incident. That is insane. That is a level of violence that you don't normally expect. Now, from having spoken to people around this, certainly what triggered this off is that this is not, first things first, this is not a very Jimmy Archer thing to do. James Archer getting into the sort of thing where he's even fighting, something has to have been awry. And certainly Hull fans felt that the hit that was laid that sort of led to the incident was pretty bad. They were pretty shocked that it only got a 2-minute penalty. However, Archer has then gone lurching in and lost his rag and lost his temper on this one in quite a bad way. To get 13 games in one shot for one incident is pretty impressive. Certainly, of course, the issue now for the Seahawks is they're starting to pick up a bit of momentum, and they've lost an experienced veteran. Certainly, I don't know necessarily whether they've been doing it a lot recently, but certainly based on that recently, when I saw the Seahawks, Jimmy Archer playing on line with Owen Brutton was really, really paying dividends, because this really high-quality youngster, up-and-coming, a lot of potential, a lot of talent, was being shepherded along by a guy who has won a lot at the second-tier level in Jimmy Archer, and now he's gone. They've now lost 23 man games to suspensions alone from 2 players, Hull. This is not ideal. It's also been a pretty tough week in terms of the Seahawks, with their GM Ian Mothall stepping away. Ian, of course, part of the triad that brought the Seahawks into existence, now stepping away for family and business reasons from the club. So it's been a bit of a strange week in Hull, where they get their first ever 4-point weekend and then get hit with a bit of bad news after a bit of bad news. Certainly a tough weekend for Joe and Matty, the remaining owners up there in Hull at the moment. Just a fascinating thing. And of course, this brings us back to this large discussion that we have time and time again about how the EIHA discipline deals with penalties and deals with suspensions. Of course, for those of you not familiar, the Elite League has the Department of Player Safety, a much more NHL-style model where individual incidents are kind of taken into account, whereas the EIHA discipline is a bit more kind of slapdash. There is a set tariff for match penalties. So if you take a match penalty for a particular offence, there is a baseline as to where your penalty will kind of start, and then depending on mitigating or what's the word I'm looking for? Not mitigating, not exaggerating either. But make it, if you make it, you can be better or worse. But here's the starting point, and it can kind of go up and down as a result. And this has, of course, drawn a lot of criticism, particularly, of course, from Hull fans who were most perturbed by the 10-game suspension that Emil Speck received for his check to the head of Rhodes Mitchell-King. Now, I will still maintain that video shows Emil Speck hitting Rhodes Mitchell-King in the head. Was it worth a 10-game penalty? Particularly when in the same week in the Elite League, a hit that was far worse than anything Speck threw from Brett Ferguson and the Guildford Flames received 1 game. And for Archer, the penalty point suspension is kind of the issue here. On the individual incident, he's not done the right thing. Now, you can't resist the official. You can't try fighting everybody and their mother. He's clearly seen red. Is it worth 13 games? Now, obviously, in all kinds of sports, if you pick up a multitude of offences, you do get suspended. We see it in football all the time. 5 yellow cards, you miss a game through suspension. Not new. I think the issue here is that there's certainly from a lot of people I've spoken to connected to Hull, the big feeling here is that there's been a lot happen here to Jimmy Archer. Nothing has happened as a result of the hit to the Bristol player that laid it. And there's a bit of a feeling, not so much that I feel that people are kind of being singled out or Hull are being particularly singled out, but they are now on the back end of 2 quite hefty bans that they don't feel necessarily have either been, one, in Speck's case, justified, because a lot of people there still argue the principal point of contact isn't the head, in my opinion, despite what the video shows. And from an Archer perspective, fine, he's made the wrong decision, but nothing has happened on the other side. You'd be forgiven for having a little bit of an issue if you were a Hull Seahawks fan this evening. In terms of other news, of course, that we probably do need to mention that's going on in British hockey. A massive congratulations, of course. Not a perfect start, but a good start for the Great Britain under-20s over in Lithuania. They beat the hosts on the opening night 4-3 before falling into a massive hole against Croatia, pulling back in the third period, but ultimately losing by 7-4. And then today, absolutely the best kind of response as GB under-20s give the Romanians an absolute kicking 9-0 hat-trick for Milton Keynes Lightning forward Max Stewart into the bargain goals as well in that one from Rhodes Mitchell-King. Just a dominant performance from GB under-20s, and the best way to respond as well, given the defeat, the disappointing defeat against Croatia into the bargain. What we will do very, very quickly is you will just very, very quickly see. Does anybody in the chat have the score from Lithuania-Croatia? Because a Lithuania win here would do a lot of help. To GB's chances of getting promotion and getting the gold medal. So let's just have a quick squiz. Having apologies there, just pressed the wrong button. So the game's gone. Just trying to figure out, and Croatia have certainly. Just having apologies about this, but just trying to figure out from this what the final score. And it's gone to penalty shots actually this game. Who's ended up winning? Who has ended up winning this one? And it looks like I believe the Croats have won this. So the Croats have beaten Lithuania on penalty shots. So GB are going to need some help from somewhere else in the group to kind of get through on that one. So that's a bit of a disappointment. Either way, still a brilliant result for GB today. And the best way to kind of respond from a disappointing loss where you put yourself into a bit of a hole is to go out, get you into your next game and smack everybody about. If you've been watching GB, stick in the chat. Who's been your player of the tournament so far for Great Britain? Be very, very interested to see. Let's have a quick look at the chat so far. Forgetting the suspensions and penalty points for a moment. 110 penalty minutes in one incident. Yep, it's pretty bad there. If it sounds like what has been said, James Galacti will get more will get more for his check to the head on Saturday at Bristol. Yeah, not a nice incident there as well. James Galaxy's check on Luke Smithell there. For me, the totting up system he's looking at, it shouldn't be so easy to get an extra 9 games on a single incident through totting up. I can't disagree with you on that one actually. Tom, what is a justifiable punishment for the incident? Croatian a shootout. Someone's put what I think is meant to be the Croatian flag, but hasn't come up there. So thanks, Sigala. I think it was always planning that Ian would step away. Not sure if it was planned to be this soon, though. If I remember rightly, it was discussed in the pre-season fans forum. I mean, Ian Moforth has done a lot for Hull ice hockey over the years. You know, when the Stingrays fell under, he tried to get things going as well. I know he was sort of has put a lot of time and a lot of effort into hockey in the city of Hull. So, if anybody's kind of given the right to kind of walk away when he wants to walk away, I venture it's probably Ian on that front. Either way, let's have a quick squiz at the NHL National Division from last weekend. And well, I know Tom's in the chat. He's not going to be a very, very happy boy, but the Southwest stays blue for now as the Bristol Pitbulls win by 6-3 on Friday against the Swindon Wildcats in Swindon. I'm unsure what it is about Swindon unable to beat Bristol. The first team to beat Leeds, they beat Milton Keynes, although they didn't this weekend. But Swindon just again with their sort of very, very bizarre, sort of all over the place season. I'm not going to quote the goal scorers because apparently, according to Bristol, we got the goal scorers wrong. Well, here's the thing, folks: if you don't put your game sheets online so we can read them, people are going to get stats wrong if all they're left with to do with is pulling things off of social media. The Sportal page is there. Use it to upload, please. And I think if that also as well. If you haven't had a chance yet, go onto the EIHA website. In their search bar, type in Sportle, Spordle. You can see what it all looks like, and it will be there. You can see what the game sheets look like. And if the game sheet is uploaded, I will use it for the write-up I do for the Bison. If it's not there, I have to use social media posts. And if the social media posts don't say the right scorer, I can't be held responsible for that. I try my best, but it is very, very hard. My deadline is generally Monday evening, so we'll deal on that one. But either way, and I'll be interested to hear what Swindon and Bristol fans think of this. Is this going to be a rivalry? Now, this is only year one, obviously, and it's been more. It will have been much more of a rivalry down in the lower divisions for the Wildcats too, and the Pitbulls when they were bouncing around together there. But is this going to be a rivalry? Is it just going to be kind of sort of a West Country thing? Is it actually going to? Are we going to get any sort of bad blood brewing on this one? Certainly, I think the thing I find interesting with Swindon this year is that they find themselves. There's been a pattern with a lot of games that they lose in the fact that Swindon will put themselves into a hole. They have the quality to claw back, and then they sort of blow all their energy clawing back to then get caught at the end. And especially the issue as well, if you're Swindon playing a team like Bristol, who've got a lot more young legs and a lot of guys with a lot of high, not necessarily great defensive nous, but a lot of high creativity. Guys like, especially now he's been added to that roster, Morgan Clark-Pizzo, Ed Bradley, guys like that. And then you've got that sort of gritty undercurrent of people like Jay Warren, Josh Shaw, Mason Lipsey, people like that. So I think maybe this thing for Swindon this year, and I don't know what those of you watching who've had the opportunity to see it will think. But I think it's just kind of Bristol are just the wrong team for Swindon. They're just built to kind of do better against them than in other places. But such is life. That was Friday night. Saturday, Bison 2, Raiders 4. Yeah, frustrating this one. It should be said though, and I haven't written it up. It is coming for banners on the wall at WordPress.com. What I was really impressed with here was through 40 minutes, this game I thought was relatively even. And a lot of people who watched this game said to me that they didn't think the Bison played particularly well. I don't think the Raiders were great either. Gomicic, Roberts, kind of MIA for the 60 minutes. What really told here actually was the strength of Raiders' top end Brits: Aaron Connolly, Tom Relf, Jake Sylvester. I thought I thought a lot of guys like Brandon Ailiff, I thought did really well in this too. But actually, what they did really well against the Bison here was they just managed the third period out of the Bison's reach. There was 3-2 up heading into the third, got the fourth, and then they didn't need to do too much, and they didn't need to do anything too clever. Just kind of push them away, keep them away. Like I said, it's not good for the Bison to lose. but there have been games at home where they played a lot worse and we felt worse coming out of it. I think kind of the issue for the Bison now is that sort of malaise is starting to kind of sink in a little bit in Basingstoke, and I think that's a real problem right now. They need to kind of snap out of it. Having good performances and not getting results is going to be a problem, and the fact that the Bison haven't massively pulled the trigger on potentially swapping out a bigger name to find somebody to come in is an issue. The problem, of course, will be who do you remove and who do you bring in as a result? And that is probably where the Bison are probably struggling a little bit at the moment. Should be said, though, on Saturday, really great to see Carl Graham back out there. He's been away from the game for a while. There's been a lot going on, and there's a few bits and pieces. And when Carl is ready to kind of tell the story of what's happened to him over the last little while, I'm sure he will do. But really good to see Scooter back out on the ice, even if you could hear his knees creaking from the front row. But yeah, good tip of the hat really to the Raiders on this one. Can't knock it. Better side won the game, all in all. Bristol then, having won on Friday, they win on Saturday. A 4-point weekend for the Pitbulls puts them up into 8th place. They beat the Bees by 7-1. Of course, the game marred for the Pitbulls by the check to the head on Luke Smittle by James Galazzi. We don't have a discipline update on that one yet. He says just quickly flicking through his phone just to kind of see if anything comes out of it. I can't see where they've put anything else out yet. There's nothing else on social media at the moment from the IHA about that one. But another decent win for the Pitbulls. Another goal more goals for Owen Sobchuk and Brendan Walker, who I've found fascinating to watch. Also, who scored in that one? Ed Bradley, Jay Warren, Bailey Hine Pitcher. I know got a goal into there. Callie Robertson. I know Mason Lipsey got one as well into there too. So. Another solid win for Bristol, and I think that somebody said the other, and certainly they thought that on their social media that they were starting to find their stride. I think the thing for Bristol is really, really going to be how they can just be a bit more defensively secure and just have that, like I said, that bit of nous. I think sometimes kind of lacks from Bristol. They do have that young group, and I think actually in some ways losing Tommy Ralph hinders them a bit because you just need somebody who's just been around the block a while. And I think we saw this with Leeds last year, didn't we? They had some great ideas, but didn't have enough kind of sort of veteran leadership to kind of pull themselves through. And we saw them stumble a bit in the playoffs when things got really dicey. The difference this year is that group a year older and a year wiser. They've taken that punch in the face and they've realised that they might have a broken nose from it, but it hasn't hindered them too much. And that's probably why Leeds are doing so massively well this year, apart from the fact, of course, they do have the best forward offensive output unit in the league in their top two lines. So well done to Bristol on that one. Hull against Telford. The Seahawks, God bless them, we do love them, but they nearly threw this one away. 5-2 up at one stage in the third period, the Seahawks, and end up in overtime against the defending league champion Telford Tigers, which is something that I venture Matty Davies will be jumping up and down and shouting about. But it all comes good in the end. A penalty shot in overtime from Andre Themar does the business, and Hull take the 2 points and send Telford home with just the one hat-trick for Themar in this game as well. If you've not seen Andre Themar yet, you are in for some fun. Believe you me, he is both fantastic and infuriating because it will feel like he can just do something out of nothing. And the fact that and I did stick it on Twitter as well the other day after the weekend where I had a conversation with Matty before Hull's game in Basingstoke, and the thing he said to me is like, everyone's here, we'll be all right. And I think the disconcerting thing is that everybody is here, and Andre Themar can make something out of absolutely nothing in a way I don't think many other players in this division can. And so I'm interested to see the next time. Now everybody's kind of got their legs under them, and Svek will be back. What happens between Hull and Leeds? I'm really, really fascinated to see how the Seahawks will deal with the Knights the next time out. For Telford, it's a point and a return to the ice this weekend, of course, for Deacon Fielder. He's been out for quite a while with a broken leg, so congrats to Deacon on getting back out there. Always good to see him. If you don't follow, in a mark of YouTube solidarity, if you don't follow Deacon's gaming channel, his channel on here is Deeks, KZ. So hunt him out or follow his Twitter, and you'll get the link for that. He does gaming videos and bits and pieces like that. So if you're into that kind of thing, make sure to follow Deacon because it's a good laugh and nothing else. The other game from Saturday, and sorry Swindon fans, we probably do need to talk about it, but MK keeping pace at the top of the table. They get a 7-2 win over the Wildcats in this one. A game, of course, that they tried to put back for the football but couldn't because of a variety of factors, including their own junior system. So well done there. But Bobby Chamberlain, Liam Stewart, Sean Norris, 2 from Lewis Christie, two from Sean Norris as well, and a goal from Callum Field, doing the business there for the Lightning. Goals for the Wildcats coming from Reed Sayers and Tomasz Malazinski. But so not a great start to the weekend there for Swindon. They had a 3-3 weekend. Tough loss at home that you'd think if you're a Wildcats fan you'd say you should be winning that game, and then a game in MK where everybody has a puncher's chance in the national division. That's kind of why I like it. But you're probably less disappointed about losing in MK because it's a horrible place to go. A lot of teams don't like playing there in terms of the fact they just don't seem to do too much with it. It is what it is on that front. Not a great one there. And then the main event of the weekend from Saturday evening. Now, before we go any further, obviously the Knights did put something out on their website and then very, very quickly spirited it away. All we will say at the moment is that we are, I am of course aware, and it was in the media over the weekend, that unfortunately there was a hit and run incident after this game outside of on the roads outside of the rink at Ellen Road. It was a hit and run incident. Unfortunately, somebody lost their life in that incident. If you were nearby and you can help the police, please do, because a hit and run is just a horrible thing to have to experience, and we just send our good thoughts and everything like that to the family of the person who lost their life, because that's just rubbish. And yes, we're waiting. The Knights did put something out and then deleted it, so I'm letting the Leeds Knights lead the way on that particular thing. But yeah, we send some good thoughts to the family of that person. But it was the main event of the weekend, really, in terms of the National Division. And the Leeds Knights squeak out a win again. Not a dominant performance by any stretch of the imagination. Back and forth, what you want out of the top two sides in the league standings. But it's Leeds Knights 6, Peterborough 5 is the final score. And if sometimes when you need people to come up in the clutch, and you could name names of everybody on that Peterborough, all that Leeds roster who could pop up for you. But when you're 5-4 down, and it was Cole Shudra who did the business. Shudra scoring late in the game to send the game to overtime, and then with 22 seconds left of the extra frame, it's the son of the rocket to put the puck in the back of the net and keep the Knights at the top of the table, and more importantly, put some distance between themselves and the Peterborough Phantoms. Now, like I say, I have and I will, and I probably will on Saturday too. I'm going to poke at the Peterborough Phantoms for the way they play, because, like I say, I think as a game plan, it's not super interesting, and I don't find it really, really good. So it is what it is on that one. That is a stylistic choice and a stylistic feeling on my part. It's entirely subjective. But you cannot knock how well it's going in Peterborough right now. Whatever has happened is happening, and it's happening a big time. To run the Knights this close. Now this will be a blow, and I'm sure the bus home on Saturday evening will have been rubbish for those Phantoms guys. But I think they've proven now that this run that they are on is not is not them falling apart. This is a team that is more the sum of their parts now. It doesn't look like a roster as high powered as the Knights, but they're hanging with them. And Leeds will lose again. I think this is the thing we know. They have 3 losses to their name already, only the one in regulation. We were honking on Sunday. Yeah. I didn't want to mention. But the thing as well, though, Kevin, we'll get to that in a second, though, actually. But sometimes the big emotional outlay on the Saturday kind of belies the lack of energy on a Sunday. 2 arrests have been made. R.I.P. to lady who sadly lost her life. Thoughts of the family and friends of the Knights organisation. Very well said, Tom. Leeds have 5 players over 40 points already. I know it's utterly insane, isn't it? It's crazy stuff. By the way, that was Saturday, which then heads us into Sunday, and a 4-point weekend for the Hull Seahawks. The first in the organisation's in the organisation's history. And not just that, but the first ever shutout as well. Jordan McLaughlin shuts the door on the Bees in Slough. Nathan Salem and Dominic Smith with the scores the empty net goal, a 2-0 win. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't even have to be pretty. It just has to be. So congratulations to the Seahawks as they get their first ever 4-point weekend in the National Division. In the elsewhere, it was also another 2-0 win on Sunday for the MK Lightning. They got the they as well. Jordan Headley here shutting the door on Telford in Telford. So two away, 2-0 wins this past Sunday. Both goals coming incredibly early. Sam Talbot and the short-handed goal from Liam Stewart inside the first 8 minutes of the game, and that's all you get on that front. On that front, so yeah, you can't argue that one. Weird that Bristol and Hull got their first 4 points in the same beginning. That's a very good point, Jamie. Actually, yes, I neglected to mention that as well. So thank you for reminding me of that one. And then, well, Kevin said it in the chat. We were honking on Sunday. Definitely not a good night for Peterborough. So they end up with only a 2-point weekend, which of course means that they that bit of closeness to the Knights, of course, will not be there. But ultimately, Sam Buller's gutting his way through there. He has 2 goals on the night for the Wildcats. Austin Mitchell-King and Tom Norton with the goals for the Phantoms. But Aaron Nell, sometimes you want a job done doing, you got to do it yourself. And the player coach of the Swindon Wildcats calls his own number, gets the overtime winner. Of course, the other game that was due to be on Sunday, we'll talk about the Bison in a sec. The other game due on Sunday was the Raiders versus the Leeds Knights. That was, of course, cancelled for the reasons we've already talked about. And then the Bison do what the Bison do, put themselves in a whopping great hole. 6-1 down at one point against Sheffield in Sheffield. Do pull it back to 6-4. 2 goals for Brendan Baird in this game, which is a bit of a strange one. The Bison again. A lot of heart and a lot of fight in this Bison roster, and I like what I see a lot of the time, and they've got to find ways to not put themselves into some of the positions they get themselves into. It is very, very frustrating. Like I say, eventually I will get the thoughts and feelings in my head about that game from last weekend onto the page and find a way to get them out there. But yeah, either way, you can't. Either way, the one thing you end up with is Sheffield again, who Sheffield are a strange side this year, and I don't know whether it's because they're obviously missing Jason Hewitt, who's still hurt. I can't put my finger on Sheffield, and like I said, and I think maybe I've said it before, and maybe this is just it. But to anybody else, does it feel like Sheffield are just made for the playoffs? It's just what it feels like to me, I think, at times, and I think it's a bit of a. I just can't, like I say, I can't quite get my head around it as to why they are the way they are. It feels like Telford must be on an awful run of results now. It's definitely not gone well for them recently. I can't think of what their active form is. We'll very, very quickly use NIHL stats just to see if because Joe will have everything up to date now. What have we got? Certainly in the month of December, at least, it's played 4, won none, lost 3. 1 overtime loss for 1 point. 11 goals scored in 4 games, 20 conceded. 3 for 21 on the power play, 13 for 16 on the penalty kill. An overall overall save percentage of 84.7, which isn't ideal. Although that being said, Vlad Luka, 40 points. Can't argue with that. He's been very, very good for them this year. Can't see. Just have a quick squiz. They are on a 7-game. Actually, the one thing you have to do, if you go into the individual team pages on NHLstats.wordpress.com, which is Joe Scott's site, if you scroll down far enough, you kind of get to all of their results so far, and then what it will have is what streak they're on. The Tigers are on a 7-game losing streak right now, because of course an overtime loss is still a loss. Sorry, Peterborough. We'll keep making that joke. But yeah, 7 games lost on the bounce for the Telford Tigers at the moment. The league champions. You can't win the title in December, but it does feel like the Telford Tigers have lost the title in December, as if a few teams hadn't already joined them. Heading with a 34-shot shutout on the Tigers on Air the Bear night. and the Lightning bus driver on the 50-50 as well. MK just win the evening, I think, by the feel of that one. Can't argue that one at all. Anyway, we have a quick squiz at the National Division table. Two teams sitting at the top on 42 points. The Leeds Knights lead the Peterborough Phantoms on the head-to-head, but the Knights have only played 23 games to the Phantoms 25. 2 games in hand is going to be massive, albeit the fact that one of those games in hand comes in very unfortunate circumstances. But the Knights are very much in command of the NHL National Division at the moment. Third place is Milton Keynes. They are 3 points back at the Phantoms. They are 39 points from 24 games, so a game in hand. They can keep the pressure on. Sheffield then are 6 points back. They have 33 from 23 in fourth. Swindon 29 from 25 in fifth. Telford 23 from 27 on that 7-game losing run that they're on. Seventh is the Raiders. They have 21 from 23. Following what turned out to be a 1-game weekend from them. So 2 points back at Telford and 4 games in hand. The Raiders, if they get a run together, could really, really elevate themselves up the table. Then Bristol with their 4-point weekend, they're up into 8th place, 19 points from 25 games. The Bison, 17 from 24 in 9th. So still a game in hand there. The Bison can draw level. The Bees, 12 from 25. And Hull with their 4-point weekend are starting to close in on the Bees. They now have 10 points from their 26 games played. Questions, comments, anything anybody wants to chuck into the chat about what we've seen so far? It's obviously been a lot of fun there. Anything anybody wants to throw in there? Spider, yeah. And I know what people are thinking, and I think that isn't it interesting in the way as well that Leeds and Peterborough are top of the table. And 2 teams doing very, very, very different things as well. Not just a clash of styles, but almost a clash of hockey philosophies into the bargain. It's what's making it quite an interesting title race to follow. Now, you'd be hard-pressed to bet against Leeds at the moment. But if Leeds lose a key piece, what happens there? Now, we've seen with the Phantoms already, they lost Austin Mitchell-King for a chunk of time and kind of galvanised and sort of, the gestalt entity that is the Peterborough Phantoms kind of sucked themselves back into themselves and twisted everything around and chucked everything back out. The addition of Martin Susters back into the roster is another added piece of depth. Also, let Barry go. They don't play Salisbury. I mean, Salisbury, to be fair, went and got to play for the Nottingham Panthers, so I don't think Archie Salisbury is going to have much of an issue on that front, because that's great development for Archie Salisbury. To be fair. So I don't think I think there's lots of eyes on Archie Salisbury at the moment. I was quite surprised actually that Salisbury went and Brad Bowering didn't, because I think Brad Bowering has really come out and had a real coming out party in the last 18 months. Ryan Aldrich and Slava Kulikov couldn't be any different in the way they both build and set up their teams. Indeed, isn't it? And it's fantastic. It's fascinating to watch. Like, as an outsider as well, from somebody who supports a different team in the division. Like, yeah, you'd love your team to be in it, but being able to actually have that distance and step back and just kind of see what's going on is really, really fun on that front. Anyway, we need to crack on because we want to. We're at the 38 minutes past 8 already, so we need to have a quick look as we move on into the other division. So we drop to Division 1, and we will look, of course, to our friends in the north. And finally, they are back. The D-side Dragons played their first home game in 1,000 days this Saturday. They were literally in North 1, the only game in town, and the D-side Dragons return with a win. They win 5-3 over the friends of the stream, the Nottingham Lions at D-side. 3-3 heading into the latter stage of this game before a short-handed goal from the D-side Dragons. And I know there's Chris Gadsby, friend of the show, one of the Nottingham Lions commentators, was very, very upset about that goal going. About that short-handed goal, because it happened again to them on Sunday. We'll touch on that with the Lions in a little bit. We will just very, very quickly just scoot back through the Dragons Twitter, because what I want to do is I want to just very, very quickly see who actually scored it, and the Dragons have not said who scored any of their goals on their Twitter. Well done them. So not. Please at least put the goal scorers on, everybody. Names are fun. We like names because we know who people are then. But yeah, so either way, congrats to the Dragons. Back home where they belong. It's taken far too long. Games were obviously had to be postponed for a variety of reasons because of this as well. So congrats to them on getting back into their barn. Sunday, less successful for the Dragons. They had a long journey up north to Billingham and the Forum. And, well, they get a point out of it. The Stars win by 7-6 in overtime. Billingham, of course, like we said, we've been keeping an eye on them. They're still hanging around towards the top end of the table this year. That youth is starting to come good up in Billingham, but 2 points for them, 1 for D-side. So a pretty decent 3-point weekend for the Dragons. Nothing to be sniffed at. The Blackburn Hawks as well appears to have woken up from their slumber to start the year, as witness another team. Certainly they were trying to chase down Billingham, but the Hawks win by 3-2 in Blackburn against the Wild. Our friends the Nottingham Lions, well, they did not show up very well. They did not show up much at all in this game. Not very good. 2 short-handed goals against. The Nottingham Lions go down 5-0 at home. 5-0 at home for the against the Solihull Barons. First time game in 1,000 days for the social media person too. Very, very true. A polite suggestion next time rather than a massive criticism. Really nice to take an OT goal from Finley Brandon for Billingham. I've not had a chance to catch up on it, unfortunately. So I will make it if that's what you're saying, Tom, then I will do that. The one thing I'm actually going to try and do is I need to, and if anybody's got any good suggestions, streaming software that works with YouTube, because then I can pull up the clips, we can stick them into the show. That might be fun if I can get that to work. And then at the top end of the table, well, Solway had the weekend last weekend and did the business. They didn't play this weekend, but Whitley did, and they have compounded the misery for the Sheffield Scimitars. 7-1, the Warriors win on Sunday evening at Hillhead. And an important win. You wouldn't want to have the banana skin of giving the Scimitars their first win of the season, especially when you're trying to keep chase at the top of the table. So we'll have a quick squiz at the North 1 table. And important for Whitley to get that win, but Solway, despite having not played, they stay top, 31 points from 17 games for the Sharks. The Warriors have 27 from 16. Billingham get their 2 points off of the weekend. They are hanging around still. 24 points for them, but they have played 18 games. So a definite gap between the top 2 and 3rd spot there. Fourth place is Widnes. They have 17 points from 15. Solihull, though, have drawn level with them on points following that win away in Nottingham. They have 17 points from 14 games. Blackburn in 6th, they have 12 from 16. Nottingham have 8 from 16. D-side with their 3-point weekend are now up to 5 points, but they've only played 8 games due to all the delays with getting their home ring sorted. As we saw, and as we predicted last week, the Scimitars are the first team in the league to pass the 100 goals against mark. 16 games played, 1 point, 104 goals conceded, only 27 scored for the second team at Ice Sheffield. Heading into South One then, and well, Streatham are going to Streatham on the as things would be. A big booming 6-1 win for the Red Hawks at home against the Chelmsford Chieftains, another team. Obviously that big net minding change, bringing in Petr Cech, coaching change as well in Chelmsford. But sometimes you just go up against Streatham and they're just going to blow everybody away. Ben Painter's side still doing the damage wherever they go. The other game that was league only on Saturday, a good 4-1 win away from home for the Solent Devils. They win away in Romford against the Junior Raiders. One game that was Southern Cup only on Saturday, one of the few remaining games. The Slough Jets with a 3-2 overtime win against the MK Thunder. The Thunder still not picking up tons and tons of points, but I don't know whether it must be the discussions that we're having. The Thunder just feel a bit more competitive this year than they did in years previous. Still travelling to game short bench, but just feels like the team have something a little bit extra about them this year, and that's really good to see. Not many games on Sunday, just the 2 in fact. Chelmsford rebound from their tough loss on the high road on Saturday to win the local derby 7-5. The Chieftains take the win over the Romford Junior Raiders. And Streatham, well, Milton Keynes put on a good show on Saturday. It doesn't go quite as well for them on Sunday. The Red Hawks with a 7-2 win at the Thunderdome against the Thunder. So we have a quick look at the tables then in South A. Of course, we know from the Cup that Chelmsford and Invicta have qualified from Group A, and now that win for Slough confirms their participation in the next round of the Cup. Solent Devils and the Slough Jets qualify from Group B. Chelmsford versus Slough, Solent versus Invicta are your two semi-finals there. In the league table itself, of course, Streatham getting knocked out of the Cup by the virtue of the fact that they got all those points docked for playing Vanya Antonov when he was still suspended. But Streatham are still top of the table, 24 points from 13 games, just the one regulation defeat this year for Streatham. Solent's win, though, keeps pace with them for the time being for the point. 20 points from 13 games, so a 4-point cushion there for the Red Hawks, having played the same amount of games. Slough are in third place. They have 14 points from 11 games. Chelmsford have 12 from 13 in fourth. Invicta have 8 from 11. Romford 7 from 9. Oxford 6 from 10. And the Thunder, still bottom of the table, unfortunately, 3 points from 10 games for MK. We hop then into North 2. Of course, not tons and tons of games this weekend. In fact, only 2 games in the whole division the whole weekend. And we have made a lot of talking about the fact that it is felt that the title race, again, was between the Hull Jets and the Telford Tigers. And the Jets, with games in hand, they needed to win and they needed to keep the pressure on Telford, but they can't do the job. The Jets lose on Saturday in the Sky Dome against the Coventry NIHL Blaze. That is a massive, massive win for Coventry, coming off the back of two defeats. They hadn't won yet in December, but that is a massive, massive win. And certainly Telford, they might be sending a few Christmas cards and a few bottles of beer down the road from Shropshire to Warwickshire to say thank you to their friends with the Dragon. From Sunday, then, just the one game in North 2, the Altrincham Aces with a 7-4 win over the Nottingham Lions second team. So what's that done? Well, what that does give is that gives Telford a cushion. They are now 6 points clear, and Hull have 2 games. Hull only have the 2 games in hand. Telford top, 28 points from 15 games. Hull second, 22 from 13. There is now daylight between the Tigers and the Jets. Altrincham stay third after their win against Nottingham, 16 from 14. Sutton are in fourth, 14 from 14. The Blazes win pushes them up to 5th. They have 11 from 15. The Sheffield Titans also have 11 points, but they've only played 14 games and would overtake if they won. Bradford off the bottom, as we know from last weekend. They have 8 points from 12, so they have a few games in hand and could, if things went their way, get as high as 5th. Nottingham are bottom of the table in North 2 at the moment. 7 points from 13 games for them. Are we set for Solway versus Streatham again on Sunday lunchtime of the playoff weekend? It does feel like it a little bit, doesn't it, Jamie? I won't lie. It does feel a little bit like it. Into South 2 then, and the variety of games. And if you like goals is what you got this weekend in South 2. Invicta with a huge win in their local derby, the battle of the second teams in South 2. The Mustangs win 9-4 away at the Riverside to take the points off the Chelmsford Warriors there. Peterborough Phantoms, they've not had the best of starts to the year, but they get a 5-3 win over the Swindon Wildcats. Haringey continue their decent run of form as they challenge towards the top end of the table. They win 5-2 they won 5-2 on Sunday away at the Cardiff Fire. And the other big scoring game on Sunday, Chelmsford had a bad Saturday evening, having lost 9-4. They have an even worse night on Sunday. They lose 13-2 to the Blackhawks on the high road in Streatham. But then we talked about it last week as well that it felt that Guildford played Bristol in the Spectrum, and it felt like the old master versus the new, as Bristol had done so well at the top of the table, and the Phoenix sneaked out a 4-3 win in Guildford. Well, they sneak out a win this time in Bristol, 5-3 win for the Guildford Phoenix against the Bristol Pitbulls. That Pitbulls team that taken a bit of a kick to their confidence there as the reigning and defending Grand Slam champions, refusing to go quietly into the night. It seems in South 2. We then have a quick look as to what's going on in with bits and pieces in South 2 in terms of the tables. And as we know, in the Cup, we know Streatham have already qualified from Group B. It looks pretty much like Haringey will join them. It will take a minor miracle for that not to happen. In Group A, apologies, just press the buttons and work my way through. There we go. In Group A, still technically all to play for. It does look like though it will be a mishmash of teams. It looks pretty much like Swindon and Solent. Unfortunately, won't make it through. Guildford lead the League Cup Group A at the moment, but Peterborough have games in hand. Invicta have games in hand. Bristol have games in hand. So not Oxford technically. If Oxford went on a run, they could potentially force themselves into second. Mathematically, though, it would look very, very hard given the teams above them and who they still have to play themselves. But Guildford and Peterborough leading the way at the moment there. In the league table itself, well, Haringey sits top of the pile 25 points from 15 games for the Huskies, just 3 defeats all year, only two in regulation. Guildford then in second place after their win over Bristol. They have 22 from 14, but Streatham have 22 points as well and have the game in hand on the Phoenix. Bristol dropped down to fourth. They have 20 from 13. Invicta have 19 from 13, so still not as fit themselves. Peterborough's win, useful for them. They have 16 points from 12 games played. They are in sixth. Cardiff 14 from 15 and Oxford 12 from 15. They are in 8th at the moment. Chelmsford, though, very much hot on the heels of Oxford for that last playoff place. They have 10 points from 13 games, so games in hand and the ability to overtake Oxford there. Swindon the 10th, they have 6 from 9. Basingstoke 4 from 12. And then at the bottom, of course, our friends, the Lee Valley Lions and the Solent Devils, both teams on 0 points so far. So there we go. We've gone through all the games across the national division. So and the National Ice Hockey League structure. Comments, questions, anything anybody wants to throw into it. Did have a message come in on in the DMs from Paul Moody, of course, is a Bison fan. I sort of mentioned about Hull. Bison not very good with loads, not very good without loads of bands. Well, they have one, of course, which is Liam Morris. What I will just do. But yeah, the Bison are just a bizarre watch at the moment. So ticket sales to the playoffs weekend, Bison, Bristol, Telford in particular. I mean, it's all well and good looking at it like that way, and I know MK fans have really jumped on it, but of course, time of year, the Bison aren't doing as well as they traditionally do. If the Bison pick up, then they will do. Bristol, it's a new thing for them. Telford are not playing very well, and those teams are more established but not doing as well. People might second guess it at the moment. I don't know. Certainly, I think a lot of people are kind of wait. I think the playoff tickets coming out around Christmas was a bad idea. I'd have waited till the new year myself for it, and maybe people are just waiting to get paid after Christmas and getting this out of the way before doing it. I know obviously MK fans will jump on the fact of teams aren't selling out their blocks. We should have been given more. Again, still no. It's not an MK event. And actually, like I say, I think a chunk of this for a lot of people will just be playing into the fact that it's come out at a bad time of year. I don't know why they've released them in December. I assume the rationale is to give it lots of time to sell out. I think they would have done better waiting until January to do this, to be perfectly honest. I know the Elite League bought theirs out as well. Just get rid of that. How realistic do you think it is to expect to change the length of penalty for next season? I think there will be some pushback, particularly from a national division level, about some of these. You can imagine that at any meeting, Matty Davies is going to be hopping up and down like a very, very angry man about the length of some of the bits and pieces. But I think the application of some stuff this year has I think a lot of there'll be a lot of discussions about it. I think the tariff system in particular desperately needs to be looked at, and we need to take more things into account, like the actual incident itself. It has to be taken in a bit more context than what the player has done. Are they a repeat offender? The totting up process as well. Like I say, getting 9 games as an additional totting up for one incident feels lopsided. I think ultimately, though, we have seen this year as well, the problems with the Elite League system is that it feels very disconnected from reality. And actually, maybe this is one of those things that IHUK need to kind of do as a simple thing and pull everything together. And then in that way, there can be a consistent process across all senior men's leagues and senior women's leagues as well into the bargain. What's changed? Well, tariff system hasn't really changed. What has changed is there's a really clear crackdown, rightly so, on head contact. No, I'd agree on that front. I think the problem that you have is that in a different league, and yes, there is the difference, of course, between the EIHL being professional, even though some Brits definitely aren't in that league, and the more semi-professional EIHA is that level of consistency. Like I say, Emil Svet can't be banned for 10 games for a hit that was objectively less bad than Brett Ferguson's, and he get 1/10 of the suspension. Like, there has to be, and this is actually an area really where the Elite League and the EIHA should kind of work together. There should be a IHUK-led hockey thing about head contact and bits and pieces like that, because what you've ultimately had there is two incidents, massive, were both bad because they're both head contact, but vastly different ways of kind of dealing with it. And actually, the Elite League and the IHA here really should be working together to kind of have a level of consistency. Now, in junior hockey, different kettle of fish, and they need to be, children, because that's what junior players are. They are children. That needs to be better. That needs to be real. That's the way we can kind of work this, is that the penalties for doing these things at a younger age can hopefully sort of stamp out some of these ideas. But at the senior level, there just has to be some sort of consistency. It makes no sense at all to have the top two divisions of British hockey in such a massive disconnect. I don't think that makes sense either. Spec GB in Nottingham potentially has an impact in the early playoff tickets, i.e. not releasing them all around the same time. Yeah, I agree. That probably doesn't help either. I don't know. I'm interested to see from an NIHL fan's perspective how many NIHL fans also are that interested in GB. Just because, of course, like, there's definitely NIHL players who should be on the cusp of GB bits and pieces. Hi, Kieran. But Sam Gospel as well, because he's a better goalie than Jordan Headley. Sorry. But yeah, I'm interested because, like I say, from an NIHL watcher's perspective, I don't think GB kind of makes much of an effort to kind of get NIHL fans into it, rather than just going, we're GB. Aye, cool. And don't get me wrong, I like watching the national team. I was at work today watching the under 20s, but I think GB's attempts to kind of get everybody in and behind the team sometimes just sort of extends as far as the Elite League, and they don't care past that. OV 800, catching Gretzky is inevitable. Agreed. Well, he's definitely going to catch Gordie Howe in the next couple of weeks, isn't he? So that'll be a thing. But yes, catching Gretzky will be inevitable. The greatest goal scorer of all time is the Washington Capital, which is nice. GB Gaming commentary on the 23rd and MK on the 25th. Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Like, it is what it is. I personally, I can't justify myself driving all that way to watch GB for the money it will cost. So, if something changes, then great. But for me, it's a hard one on that one. Anyway, we're heading towards the 9:00 mark, and of course, our friends from View from the Bridge will be going live in a minute. If you, I don't shill a lot for the Elite League, but I do shill for my friends, and big respect to the guys over at AFTB. They're going for a long time. Obviously, very Belfast focused. If you've never watched what they do, please do check them out. Go troll Patrick in the comments or something, because I probably will in a minute. But either way, last call, questions, comments, and bits and pieces as I get the fixtures ready to quickly squiz through for next week. So you get your questions and bits into the chat that you want, and I will get the fixtures up ready to go for this upcoming weekend. So unfortunately, football didn't come home. So we're not going to see any chops and changes there. But into the National Division for this coming weekend, Saturday, the 17th of December, 6:30 p.m. face-offs there. 6:30 p.m. face-offs then. A couple across the National Division this coming Saturday. Basingstoke take on Peterborough. That is the Air the Bear game in Basingstoke, so make sure if you're going to take a teddy bear with you. Also, 6:30 face-off for the Leeds Knights. They take on the Bees, and the Swindon Wildcats take on the MK Thunder at the Link Centre. 7 p.m. face-off in Bristol for the Pitbulls and the Seahawks as the new boys in the division battle it out. And a 7:30 p.m. face-off at Ice Sheffield. The Sheffield Steel Dogs take on the Telford Tigers. Into Sunday then, and of course, it's Sheffield at home. So what other time do they start? It's 4:30 p.m. for the Steel Dogs. They take on the Bristol Pitbulls in the Puppy Bowl. 5 p.m. face-off at the Hangar for the Bees and the MK Lightning. The Raiders take on the Basingstoke Bison at 5:15 p.m. I believe that's kids for £1 if you're going to Romford for that one. 5:30 p.m. face-off at the world's most versatile arena for the Hull Seahawks and the Peterborough Phantoms, and a 6 p.m. face-off for the Telford Tigers and the Swindon Wildcats. Into North 1 then for this upcoming weekend. Just the one game on Saturday. The Deeside Dragons will be at home. It's a 5:15 face-off in the Dragons' lair for the Dragons and the Blackburn Hawks. Into Sunday the 18th and a 5 p.m. face-off at Hillheads for the local derbies, the Whitley Warriors and the Billingham Stars. 5:15 face-off then again in Deeside. The Dragons take on the Sheffield Scimitars as the Scimitars look for anything at all out of this season. 5:30 p.m. face-off at Hobbsmoat Road. The Solihull Barons take on the Widnes Wild. Blackburn will take on the Nottingham Lions at 6 p.m. Into South 1 then for this upcoming weekend. A couple of games on Saturday in the division. 5:15 p.m. face-off over in Sapphire Ice and Leisure for the Romford Junior Raiders and the Streatham Redhawks. 6:15 face-off in Oxford. The City Stars host the Solent Devils. Slough Jets versus Chelmsford is a 6:30 face-off at the Hangar, and the MK Thunder welcome the Invicta Dynamos to the Thunderdome at 7 p.m. On Sunday, the 18th of December, just the 3 games on the docket. Invicta take on Solent. That's a 5:15 face-off in Gillingham. 6 p.m. at the Riverside for the Chelmsford Chieftains and the MK Thunder, and a 6:45 p.m. face-off on the High Road. For first place third, Streatham take on Slough. Into North 2 then, and a few more games on the docket this weekend in North 2. And Hull will be looking to rebound from that horrible loss away in the Sky Dome against the Coventry Blaze. But first game up though, it's a 1 p.m. face-off at Ice Sheffield. The Titans take on the Nottingham Lions in the local derby. Hull then head back home. They have a 5:30 p.m. face-off at the world's most versatile arena against the Sutton Sting, and then Telford look to press home their advantage in the league standings. They have a 7 p.m. face-off at home against the Bradford Bulldogs. Just the one game on Sunday is a League and Cup game at the NIC CCM pad. The Nottingham Lions take on the Altrincham Aces. That is a 7:15 face-off in Nottingham. We then head to South 2 for South 2 for what are the last fixtures of the year in that division. 5:15 p.m. face-off down in Gillingham on Saturday. The Invicta Mustangs take on the Solent Junior Devils, and it's a 5:30 p.m. face-off at Alexandra Palace. The Haringey Huskies look to remain top of the table as they take on the Chelmsford Warriors, special for their 2 defeats last weekend. The last game on Saturday is a 6:30 p.m. face-off in Peterborough. The Peterborough Phantoms take on the Streatham Blackhawks, who will look to keep the pressure on for their title charge. 2 games then on Sunday. It's a 6:15 p.m. face-off in Oxford. It's former landlords against former tenants. The Oxford Rising Stars take on the Bristol Pitbulls. And then at the Link Centre, it's Swindon versus Basingstoke, the Division 2 version. The Wildcats take on the Basingstoke Buffalo. That's the fixtures for this coming weekend in the National Ice Hockey League. Could be 6:30 face-offs in Slough and Romford on Sunday. It could be, yeah. I'm pretty certain they've moved it to 6:30 in Slough. I'm just going off of what Joe has on the website at the moment. MK Thunder, yep, they're all over the place. Lightning, Thunder, you're all the same to me. It all just goes around. Streaming around Christmas, yeah. Given when bits and pieces are happening at Christmas and given when Christmas falls, so there will be a stream on the 21st. There should be a stream on the 28th. I'm missing the games between Basingstoke and Swindon because I am. It's Christmas and I'm doing family stuff. I'm in Cornwall. I can't be at the game in Basingstoke. So I will endeavour to do a stream on the 28th, is the idea. Definitely be a pre-Christmas one next Wednesday, the 21st. So don't worry about that. Either way, given the fact it is after 9 o'clock and our friends from AVFTB will be rocking and rolling, that's all the bits and pieces that we have in the chat there. So I think what we will do is we will call it there. Bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, your number one source for all things related to the bases at Bison. Player comings, player goes. I will have a match report up from the game against the Raiders from last weekend. I promise I'll get that done before the weekend when I can get the thoughts out of my head, as well as our hockey story series, The Wild, Weird and Wonderful World of Hockey. The latest piece, of course, is there. It's sit-down interview with Tom Ralph of the Hull Seahawks. If you haven't, do go listen to it. It's a fascinating listen, especially for the first recorded time he talks about his departure from the Hull Pirates, and it's a really interesting story. So definitely do go check that out. Also on the website, the back catalogue of the old BOTW podcast is there, as well as Dice Hockey, our tabletop ice hockey simulation game. Downloadable for free. The instructions are there, the game sheet's there, everything that you need. You only need a few bits and pieces you can pick up around your house to play. All I ask is if you do enjoy playing it with your friends and your family, do please consider making a donation to Parkinson's UK. My dad has Parkinson's. It sucks as a disease, and it'd be great to get some money towards research and eventually finding a cure for it. Facebook.com/banners on the wall. If you like getting bits and pieces through your Facebook feed, then go over to the Facebook page and like that. Everything that goes on the website comes through there as well. But the best place to interact with me, as well as keep up to date with all the bits and pieces that that I tend to cover across the National Ice Hockey League, is over on Twitter. It's @BannersOTW. And of course, what gave rise to this that you're watching right now, the NIHL's first and as far as we're only live show to cover absolutely every game that is played in the NIHL, is here now in its new home on YouTube, the BOTW What's Current stream. Whew, well, Santa Claus is nearly coming to town. GB under 20s are still rocking and rolling, and hopefully maybe promotion is in the cards, and there's a whole weekend of hockey ahead of us. So whatever, try your best. I know it can be a tough time of year, especially with it getting dark so early, but if you can, please do be happy. If you can't be happy, then please do everything you can. Please be safe. As my friend Scott Edwards would say, take care of yourself and somebody else. For bannersonthewall.wordpress.com, this is Anthony Russell saying stay safe, and so long until next time. Wherever you get your hockey this weekend, do enjoy it. Take care, everyone.